Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Wizard of Legend on Rocket Rabbit Commentaries, and in this episode, we're going to be taking down Shoo in the Wind Fortress on yet another. Well, this is actually the showcase one for Awe. What should honestly call this one the Shock and Awe run, because we're using a bunch of electrical. Or using a bunch of lightning arcana with the awe garb as I think I'm supposed to call it, or cloak. I prefer to call it cloak.
Ooh.
I almost actually dodged all of those.
Against the wind. Boss fight seems a bit quiet today.
Well, that's because it's the first one, and for the bosses, they don't actually play all that. They don't actually play all that loud of tunes. The arcana that we just got, the Prickly Ballet, is actually really, really good. It does a lot of small hits, and as such, it procs crits a lot while we have critical hit steroids going. So it works relatively well, despite the fact that it is not a lightning arcana. It's an earth one.
Earth as the corpses dancing around.
They're not
their
corpses, they're cacti.
The dancing cactus, huh?
Yes, like cactuars from Final Fantasy.
You're right. They are supposed to be cactuars from Final Fantasy. Huh. This really is like a game for graduates.
I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that. I mean, it's definitely a game for those that are experienced in roguelikes, but aren't actually all that good at them, because I will say that Wizard of Legend in general is actually easier than a majority of other popular roguelikes. However, I attribute that to being an overall good thing as opposed to a negative thing. And booyah! Sanguine attire again.
Nice.
Now, the terrible thing about this is that not only do we have the Sanguine attire, but we also still have the steroids going for Aw's bonus. Because if you recall earlier, we purchased the Taylor steroid for our cloak. So yes, not only do we have the Sanguine attire bonuses giving us increased critical hit chance and heals on crits, we also have increased critical hit chance and critical hit damage due to having the enhanced cloak that we're wearing.
Our Gen 1 Pokemon speed is now optimal.
I wouldn't say optimal. I'd say slightly higher than intended. It's one thing that I've always regretted is that I've never actually run Persian in Gen 1. And the whole reason why is because Meowth is not honestly all that fun to raise in Generation 1. So having Persian be, just stupidly overpowered is never something I've ever gotten to experience. I think I've experienced Tauros being really good, but I don't think I've ever experienced Persian being really good,
Oh yeah, I never thought about that. That Tauros would be a really effective battler, except that his moveset is going to be limited, and he can largely only do physical type attacks.
Not in Gen 1. In Gen 1, he gets access to Thunder, Blizzard, and Fire Blast thanks to TMs. Mind
right,
you,
but he's not. But just because he can,
he's not supposed to use them
attack,
because his special stat is crap. But
right. That there's the ability to use the move, and there's your opportunity cost.
But think of it this way: what else are you going to have Tauros actually do aside from body slam and hyper beam?
Earthquake.
I suppose, but if you're going to use the Earthquake TM on someone, it should be someone that actually that doesn't get Earthquake naturally. Like Rhydon. Fucking Rhydon.
Isn't it true also that you don't get a stat multiplier by using a ground type Pokemon to do a ground type attack?
No, you still get stabbed for that.
Okay.
It's actually what makes it's actually what makes Persian and Tauros actually really effective. It's one of the misnomers about Generation 1, to be perfectly honest. Yes, Psychic is the best type in Generation 1, but that's off of the fact that Special is such a stupidly broken stat in Generation 1. To be perfectly honest, Normal is actually the second best type in Generation 1, mostly because Ghost is straight up not a type that works, and the only actual Pokemon that are resistant to normal types are rocks, and there isn't a single rock Pokemon worth running.
Right, and the only fighting type moves in the game, not even all of Seismic Toss doesn't give you a multiplier.
Doesn't give you bonus damage. So like the only fighting move that you're ever really worried about are a low kick and submission. Submission very specifically is only on the Machamp line, and low kick is only really scary from Primeape.
Yeah, and you're not gonna get high jump kicked a lot either.
Yeah, because high jump kick and jump kick are both on Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee is great, mind you, but you have to run Hitmonlee specifically in order to get those.
So what I gleaned from this massive diversion from Wizard of Legend is there's the way that you want to play the game, and there are also the little holes in the game that you can exploit if you know where they are and you're knowledgeable with the methods to take it all the way.
Most certainly.
Wizard of Legend, I agree, is from my perspective an easier game than other roguelikes that I've seen. Definitely not as difficult as Binding of Isaac. And case in point, on a very recent episode of Wizard of Legend Rock Graphic Commentaries, we almost beat the final boss on our very first try of the playthrough.
No, it was our first try against the final boss, but it was not our first run.
Right, not the first run. So, like, if it was me playing this, we would not have made it far on that attack.
Right. To be perfectly honest, and it's something that I've had a little bit of problems with Wizard of Legend 2 as well, your first several runs are just you scouting out how you want to actually approach the game. Cabby Cinnamon Hots. Come on, get the cinnamon.
Right,
well, no, we want the analytical module for a increased critical hit chance, but we want to, wait for it still.
There's the way you want to approach the game, and there's the way that the game wants to be approached. They're two different things.
I'm not actually entirely sure about that when it comes to Wizard of Legend 1, to be perfectly honest, because Wizard of Legend 1 really does want to be approached like, hey, every time that you do a run, you get mechanically better. You get mechanically better at it as you're getting more used to the normal encounters and the boss fights that you're dealing with.
Right, but that's the only way to get better at Wizard of Legend 1, because you can't level up your character, you can't carry over inventory, you can't carry over gold. You're starting fresh every single time.
But your
which honestly is a bit liberating.
Experimentation is also really important, because it will tell you what arcana you want to be using and what relics do you feel are actually worthwhile. Noxious Dagger Cap. We now have the chance to inflict poison whenever we use Arcana. It's very nice.
Well, I think making purchasing mistakes is definitely something you want to iron out on your first couple of playthroughs. It's just nice that if you get the combination just right, you could, in theory, beat it on your first try, except that you're just not as familiar with the boss patterns than if you had multiple attempts at it.
Right.
You might not anticipate that the final boss of the game has two forms, for example.
Yeah. Okay, so we're 75% of the way through this floor.
And we're at full health. Nice.
Yes, and we've got a bunch of additional health orbs floating around. This is kind of what happens when you get the Sanguine Attire too early, though. It becomes very, very clear that, hey, I'm effectively immortal at the moment. Should I still actually be attempting to farm up stuff? And the correct answer to that is actually yes, because the more raw cash you have, the more options you have to attempt to experiment with other stuff. Specifically, what I would like to do is actually get a full suite of Lightning Arcana. Although I do love the Prickly Ballet, I would prefer to replace it with, a Thundering Chain, if possible.
I mean, Prickly Ballet, I mean, it's cute, but doesn't seem to be as powerful as your other Arcana.
It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it doesn't need to, because it does actually inflict a decent amount of stun state, and it also very specifically crits a lot, thanks to a lot of the stuff that we've got going on. So, Analytical Module for increased critical hit chance. Family Seal is not something that I actually should have gotten, although it is going to get me a decent bounty against Freya, so.
The Counter Rogue. And how many smacking sounds was that?
And down. See, we only lost 23 health for that fight. And now that we're back to full
and
health,
we got it all back.
Are
Nice.
we gonna get the Cinnamon Hots? We got the Cinnamon Hots. The cabbies relics are honestly all really, really fun to play with. Specifically because they make it so that your basic Arcana has a chance to attach another basic Arcana onto it, and you can actually get elemental effects from those. Cabbie Cinnamon Hots will allow you to actually score Burning as a status ailment, and Burning is not exactly all that relevant, but it is cool.
Elemental weaknesses.
And spam Arcana at her.
We already took out half of her health. Dance with me.
And she is downed.
Man, you showed me a fist fight in fast motion would not have had so many, like, ping, 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 ping.
Also, we got Earthquake Cactus, which is a really cool Arcana. It's one that I just straight up won't use, though. In the next episode, we will finish off this run. Be safe, everybody.